Greetings, this is Jaz of Jaz Reviews, and it's time to review Bloodborne, the PlayStation 4 exclusive and spiritual successor to the Dark Souls series. The world is a hellishly atmospheric nightmare that instills a true sense of dread and desperation, two overall themes that carry over to almost all aspects of Bloodborne. Inflicted by what could best be described as a sinister blood plague, the city of Yharnam and its districts beyond lie host to some of the most disturbingly imaginative sights in constant and unrelenting attempts to maintain these two themes. The narrative is undetermined and left to the player to interpret as a whole. Snippets of dialogued whispers heard from beyond dubious closed doors are the kind of encounters that contribute to what is a very cryptic style of storytelling. Bloodborne refrains from simply peddling through cutscenes, and instead flaunts with its lore through item descriptions or suggestive images found in beautifully crafted environments, or seen with its diabolical enemy types, some of which, for example, seem to have once been human, their mutations a consequence of practicing blood rituals. As you progress through the game, the vast districts of Yharnam may at first be overwhelming, with terrifying enemies and wondrous treasure at every turn and deviation. The game rarely informs the player of where or what exactly they should be doing. Discovery and general exploration are of what makes Bloodborne so interesting. Developers from Software have crafted the most satanic yet magically tuned level design, all of which help the game world feel huge, yet very real. An area that lies in distant memory turns out to be almost adjacent to the carnage you're facing in the present. Deviations that were once blocked off by a closed gate are revealed to be intricate shortcuts linking up with different sections located many hours into the game. And so, the Souls currency of past games has been replaced with blood echoes. The bonfires too are now lanterns, which for those new to the game act as wondrous checkpoints, always a sign of relief. The Nexus hub is now the Hunter's Dream, a hub platform used to purchase weapons, armor, and consumables in addition to leveling your character in amongst other things. From here you will choose between the checkpoints you may have unlocked to sift back into the real nightmare of overcoming one enemy at a time. Dark Souls veterans may find their experience a touch irrelevant. The game's wooden shield is almost as effective as cooking your dinner with a wooden saucepan. Not very. Replacing the more cautiously calculated safety of Dark Souls, Bloodborne favors fast-paced action relying upon reflexes and opportunistic combat, massively encouraging offensive gameplay. Bloodborne's new damage riposte mechanic gives the player a short window in which dishing out swift damage regains lost health. Health vials are free to be consumed as and when needed, but it can be difficult at times to locate vials in a place where you've probably collected them all. A big shakeup of mechanics boils down to the game's firearms, of which main effect is not damage. Opportunities may arise whereby one simple gunshot will stun an enemy, leaving the abomination open to what is an execution-styled animation dealing massive damage. Again complementing offensive gameplay, segments of health can also be traded for temporary silver bullets. But playing this way requires balls. As with players like me, such attempts usually result in the extremely familiar "you died" screen. Risk assessment underpins the entire Bloodborne experience. Dying is still punishing, whereby vials are lost and consumed, and the blood echoes you may have gained lost with them. Although you will get the one chance to track down the enemy that killed you as an attempt to reclaim your lost echoes. Otherwise, all of that progress means virtually nothing. You will die over and over and over again. Which means a little bit of farming lesser enemies for a while is shameless practice until attribute points are grinded out and your character is up for the challenge. But enemy types are often just as agile as the player, and will alter their attack patterns without warning, some of which may leave you thinking, how the hell did that guy shake off a heavy attack and kill me regardless? For the most part, the game is very balanced, and bouts of sheer skill can overcome the need to grind out areas, but consistency isn't always apparent. Sometimes an enemy will just hit you, even when you think he shouldn't or couldn't. But nevertheless, there is no denying how sophisticated the attacks or reactions of enemies can be. There are far less weapons around this time, but each weapon is made to feel all the more unique, all with huge combo movesets. Right-handed weapons can be transformed into bigger or more powerful tools of devastation, upping the learning curve along with it. Thrown into the mix are upgrades fortifying the overall damage of weapons, whilst blood gems may add specific traits like poison damage. Combat magic is now largely limited to one-off consumable item attacks. For example, some items can help lure beasts away, whilst one elixir actually turns the player invisible. In addition, the Carol runes can also be equipped for passive bonuses. Along the way, the tension never pales. Its atmosphere is a very impressive take on horror, without much of its cliches. As you can see, level design is intricately grim. Enemy types in general boast astounding levels of originality, some of which like to charge down your character in big damage power attacks. And then you have some that like to hit as quick as possible, and some which may appear weak and timid, but are capable of leeching onto your character's skull in a one-hit kill. The insanely stressful experience of taking on a main boss fight is intensified to all kinds of maddening levels in Bloodborne, depleting your character of hard-earned blood vials and silver bullets. Enormous adversaries take form as lightning-fast beasts that do well to remind the player just how small and powerless he is. Bosses are as imaginative as they've ever been. Beating them can be one of the most glorious cases of triumphant masculine victories in a video game. Thankfully, the beckoning bell can be used to call upon other players to greatly increase your chances. Passwords can also be set up to play with a specific friend. And the sinister bell is used to invoke controversial player versus player. You may see shades of other players from other worlds at times go through your game as ghosts or specters, warning you of how they died. Helpful notes may also be read to warn of oncoming ambushes, whereas some notes will troll your player into jumping off a ledge and falling to your death. Though it's important to note that any matchmaking interaction will consume insight, a limited resource. Also bear in mind that you may be waiting a long time before a player joins your world, thanks to the unknown variables of Bloodborne's matchmaking and painful server issues. In addition, Bloodborne neglects to inform players of anything, and severely limits its accessibility for those new to the franchise. Even the most seasoned of RPG players will struggle to understand the systems in play. But it is a very community-based driven game that I'm sure will help you out here online. Accessed from the Hunter's Dream and initiated by blood rituals. A certain amount of progress into the game will unlock the Chalice dungeons. Both fixed and some unpredictable procedurally generated environments can be created as a result. There may be less masterful detail found in random dungeon generations, but they do include formidable traps, respawning enemies, and horribly difficult bosses of their own. You can take them on with friends, and you can share your own Chalice dungeons with others online. The biggest criticisms of Bloodborne will be entirely subjective. Dark Souls veterans may find Bloodborne's swifter mechanics difficult to adapt to, but the immensely focused development path has, I believe, tweaked its systems for the better. We now have largely tight-polished gameplay that moves away from the safe strafing tactics of old, in favor of more hectic and arguably better battles. Bloodborne is unapologetically difficult, and all the more rewarding as a result. The theme of desperation is ultimately a good thing, feeding the addiction to conquer your greatest challenges. That said, the real enemy is the bland loading screen image issued upon death, lasting a typical 30 to 40 seconds. If, say, you wanted to go back to the Hunter's Dream and grab some consumables, that's 2 loading screens before you get back to the real world. There are also a lot of frame rate spike issues, sometimes brought on by multiple enemies on screen, or simply one big monstrosity performing too many animations. But such issues are looking to be patched now. Take note though that the game runs at a maximum of 30 frames per second, which is a compromise in itself. The camera angle system feels a little restricted at times, unhelpful in more tight situations. But all in all, Bloodborne is indeed a masterpiece. Experienced gamers should be able to see its development quality oozing from their PlayStation 4s while their disc is in. The game implements some new ideas, but doesn't stray too far from the Dark Souls main game structure outside tweaks to the combat system. But that's not a criticism. The game deserves the highest of review scores, with around 30 to 40 hours of gameplay on offer here. I issue Bloodborne 9.5 out of 10. This is, so far, the greatest title to have graced the next generation. This has been Jaz of Jaz Reviews, and this has been my review for Bloodborne. Thanks for watching, and remember to stay tuned for more video game reviews. I know a lot of my reviews don't always find their way into your subscription boxes, so keep an eye out or follow me on Twitter and I'll let you know which review is next. But until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the comments.